You ever been in a meeting, maybe just grabbing a coffee, when someone says something that's just off? You know that comment that makes the air go totally still, and you know you should say something, but you're just freeze? Well, today, we are going to dive right into that exact moment. We're going to unpack why we stay silent and what happens when our politeness crashes right into someone else's resistance. Okay, so picture this. You're in the staff room. The whole company just had this big inclusion training, and there's a new colleague, a young, black, neurodivergent woman making some tea, and then Emily, a coworker, says this out loud. Just dead silence. Maybe one awkward little chuckle. It just hangs there. And that's what's going through the head of another coworker, Charlotte, who saw the whole thing. She feels that knot in her stomach, that little voice screaming, "Speak up," but she doesn't. And I think that's a feeling a lot of us unfortunately know all too well. So, let's start with Charlotte. Let's really try to get inside her head. Why did she stay quiet? To figure this out, we're going to look at something called the 6 Stages Framework for Bias Awareness. It's a super helpful tool for understanding these kinds of very human, very real reactions. So, this framework tells us that Charlotte is at what's called stage +1, or emerging awareness. This is that spot where you're really starting to see bias in action. You know, maybe the training actually clicked, you're paying more attention, but you just don't have the playbook yet. You don't know what to do or say. And if we break down what's happening inside her head, it's pretty fascinating. She absolutely clocks that the comment was not okay. But that awareness is immediately steamrolled by total uncertainty. So what does she do? She defaults to silence. And then she starts telling herself a story, right? Oh, I'm just being professional. Or it would just make it worse if I said anything. And what's really driving all of that? What's the engine behind those excuses? It's this really common, really powerful fear of rocking the boat, of creating drama, of being labeled difficult, or just making a super awkward situation even more awkward. Okay, so that's one half of the story. Now we've got to flip the coin and look at Emily, the person who made the comment in the first place, because her reaction is just as crucial to understanding what's going on here. So using that same framework, Emily is at stage -1, unaware and resistant. Now, this doesn't mean she's some kind of evil villain. Not at all. It usually just means she's kind of blind to the real impact of her words, probably because they're coming from a place of unchecked privilege and a general discomfort with things that are different. And her behavior, it follows this almost predictable script. First, there's the joke. Then, when that joke lands with a thud in a silent room, she doesn't think, maybe that was off. No, she gets defensive. She'll mutter something like, "Geez, people are just so sensitive these days." It's a classic move to shift the blame for the tension that she created. In her core fear, it all comes down to accountability, the fear of being called out, of being seen as prejudiced, of actually having to face the consequences of her words. That is a huge motivator to just stay put in that state of resistance. So here we are. We've got Charlotte and Emily, 2 totally different people with 2 totally different things going on inside. But what happens when their actions and inactions collide in the real world? When you lay it all out side by side like this, it is just crystal clear. You've got Charlotte with her budding awareness and her desire to just be polite, which leads to her silence. And then you've got Emily, totally unaware and uncomfortable, which leads to her getting defensive. And look at their core fears, rocking the boat versus accountability. They are perfect mirror images of each other, aren't they? And this right here is the absolute crux of it all. This is the most important part. Despite all their differences, their opposite motivations, their different fears, their behavior leads to the exact same outcome. The biased comment just hangs in the air, completely unchallenged. The new colleague is left feeling totally alone and unwelcome. Harm was done. And the system that lets these things happen just got a little bit stronger. Why? Because silence sustains systems. Okay, so that's the problem. But just understanding it isn't enough, right? The real question is, how do we help people move forward? What do folks like Charlotte and Emily actually need to grow, to change their behavior? Well, the framework actually gives us a roadmap for that too. For Charlotte, it's not about sending her to another training session. She's already aware. What she needs is psychological safety, to genuinely feel like she can speak up without risking her job or reputation. She needs the actual words to say in the moment, and the confidence to say them. And, crucially, she needs to see other people, especially leaders, actually do it well. Now, Emily needs something completely different. She needs a mirror held up to her.
Someone needs to help her see the real impact of her words, not by shaming her, but just by being clear. She could really use a mentor, someone she trusts, who can gently challenge that defensive wall she puts up. And at the end of the day, she has to find her own reason, her own motivation to step outside her comfort zone.
So we've broken down Charlotte and Emily. But the real power of a tool like this comes when we stop looking at them and we start looking at ourselves. So let's take a second to do just that.
Think about it honestly. In a moment like that one in the staff room, who are you more likely to be? Are you the Charlotte, the person who sees it, who feels it's wrong but stays silent out of fear? Or are you a little more like Emily, who maybe doesn't even see the problem and gets defensive when things feel tense? And let's get even more real. When you have that chance, that split second to say something, to disrupt a little moment of bias, what is it that stops you? Is it that fear of rocking the boat? Is it not having the right words, or is it something else entirely? Because here's the bottom line. Seeing the bias, being aware of it, that is an absolutely essential first step. But it can't be where we stop. Because whether we stay silent out of a desire to be polite, or we push back out of resistance, the result is the same. The real work, the hard work, begins when we decide what we're going to do next.